Something has just been revealed about you that certain forces spent years trying to keep buried. Not a rumor, not an opinion. Your actual identity, your real frequency, your true magnitude has broken through every barrier that was constructed to contain it. The people who positioned themselves as gatekeepers of your story woke up today to find the locks they placed on your narrative have been dissolved from the inside. You did not force this moment. You did not campaign for it. You simply kept becoming more of who you actually are until the truth of you became too loud, too visible, and too undeniable to suppress any longer in the entire archive of spiritual history. There is a phenomenon so rare, it has been documented only in the lives of souls who were specifically engineered for pivotal eras. It is called the unveiling, the moment when a frequency that was deliberately compressed begins to expand beyond the boundaries of human control. For thousands of years, this event has been preceded by a long season of being unseen, of having your value minimized by systems and people who sensed your power before you fully recognized it yourself. What is happening to you right now is not a trend. It is the completion of a cycle written into the blueprint of your soul before this lifetime began. You have been living through a season that tested something most people quietly abandon, which is the decision to remain authentic when invisibility felt like punishment. There was a moment recently, possibly in a room where your contribution went unacknowledged, possibly in a conversation where someone spoke over your truth, where you made a quiet internal choice. You decided not to shrink. You decided not to perform a version of yourself designed to make others comfortable with your presence. That single internal decision, made without applause, without witnesses, without any immediate reward, is precisely what triggered the unveiling that is now unfolding across every dimension of your life. What you were not informed of is that the same forces working to keep you unseen were being monitored by something they could not anticipate. Both dark energies and divine intelligence were present in the spaces where your identity was being suppressed. The darkness was invested in your continued invisibility because a soul operating at your authentic frequency disrupts environments built on illusion and performance. The divine was watching to see how long you would maintain your truth under the pressure of being unseen. Every time you chose not to distort yourself, to fit a space that was simply too small for what you actually carry, that choice was being recorded. There was a professional environment where your ideas were taken without credit, and rather than destroying relationships over recognition, you continued contributing because the work mattered more than the applause. There was a personal relationship where someone consistently minimized your worth, and instead of becoming what they accused you of being, you quietly outgrew the dynamic without bitterness. There was a public moment where you could have exposed someone's misrepresentation of you with evidence you possessed, and you held back because your character was not available for transaction. There was a private night where exhaustion nearly convinced you that staying hidden was safer, and you chose visibility anyway. When a soul passes a certain number of identity tests without fracturing, without performing, without abandoning authenticity, for approval, the higher councils of spiritual governance take formal notice. You have now been classified beyond the category of ordinary incarnated souls. In the language of celestial record-keeping, you carry what is described as an uncompromised signature, a frequency that remains structurally intact under sustained external pressure to dilute it. This classification does not make you superior. It makes you dangerous to any system that requires you to be less than you are in order to function. Your full presence in any environment is an act of involuntary exposure for everything false operating nearby. The precise moment you chose authenticity over acceptance in that defining situation, something occurred in the higher realms that has no equivalent in human language. The archangels assigned the protection of truth in this era registered the event. The divine intelligence that governs the architecture of identity, the source that constructed your soul's original blueprint, turned its full gaze toward that moment. What was witnessed was not performance. It was not courage manufactured for an audience. It was the raw, unfiltered frequency of a soul refusing to betray its own design under maximum pressure. The heavens do not applaud this. They activate it. And the activation that began in that moment has not stopped a decree, has been released from the highest authority governing your path. And it carries one central command, which is that what was hidden must now be seen. The narrative constructed by those who benefited from your invisibility is being systematically dismantled, not by your effort, but by the weight of Ava, accumulated truth pressing against it from the inside. Every result you produced quietly, every seed of genuine character you planted without recognition, every moment of authentic presence you brought into spaces that tried to dim, you is now converging into an undeniable body of evidence. The universe does not argue on your behalf. It simply makes your truth too visible to misrepresent you, are not the version of yourself that was described by people who needed you to be smaller. You are an ancient soul who carries a specific identity assignment that predates this body, this name, and this timeline. In previous existences, you operated as a keeper of authentic frequency, a being tasked with holding the integrity of truth in environments saturated with distortion. You chose to return in this era because this particular moment in human history required someone who could demonstrate what an uncompromised identity looks like when it refuses to disappear. The reason your presence has always made certain people uncomfortable before you even spoke is because your frequency alone is a mirror. They were not prepared to face your mission is not to announce yourself. It is to simply be so fully and completely yourself that concealment becomes structurally impossible. Every room you enter with your authentic identity intact becomes a space where false narratives lose their grip. Every relationship you maintain from a place of genuine self-knowledge becomes a living demonstration that people do not have to trade their identity for belonging. You are assigned to dismantle the lie that visibility requires compromise. You are here to prove through lived experience that the most powerful thing a soul can do in an era of performance and illusion is to remain irrevocably, stubbornly, and completely real, because the decree has been issued and your identity is no longer containable. The material world is responding in ways that will become increasingly difficult for even skeptics around you to explain. Doors that required specific people's permission to open are opening through entirely different mechanisms. Opportunities are arriving through channels that bypass the gatekeepers entirely. People with genuine influence and aligned values are being drawn into your orbit, not because of strategy, but because your frequency now operates above the level where suppression is effective. The financial, relational, and professional dimensions of your life are reorganizing around the truth of who you are, rather than the diminished version others tried to enforce as your identity becomes visible. The effect on those around you is immediate and involuntary. People who have been performing versions of themselves for years begin to feel the exhaustion of that performance more acutely in your presence, not because you confront them, but because proximity to an uncompromised frequency creates an involuntary comparison that comfort can no longer silence. Those who are ready will begin to drop their performances. They will start making choices from their actual values rather than their fears. You will not instruct them. You will simply exist at your full frequency, and that existence will do more to awaken authenticity in others than any teaching or persuasion could accomplish across this planet. A specific network of souls is undergoing the same unveiling simultaneously. They have been through comparable seasons of invisibility. They have made similar choices to remain authentic under sustained pressure to disappear. They carry the same uncompromised frequency signature, and right now, the conditions that kept them individually isolated are breaking down. This network does not require a platform to assemble. It is assembling through resonance, through the Magnetic pole of aligned identity operating at the same activated frequency. When these souls begin to find each other, which is already beginning, the collective field they generate will make the suppression of authentic identity in any environment permanently unsustainable. What you just received landed somewhere deeper than thought. If it moved through your body before your mind had time to analyze it, that response is not emotional reaction. It is frequency recognition. Your soul identified itself in this message because this message was constructed for exactly where you are in your unveiling. Comment 777 below if you felt your true identity confirmed in these words. Share this immediately with someone whose greatness has been overlooked or misrepresented, because this message carries an activation that transfers through the act of sharing. Subscribe because the next transmission in this series goes even deeper into what happens after the secret is out and the world can no longer look away from who you actually are.